Hello, everyone. It is Thursday night. Welcome to another SDGC Live. I am Derek. I'm joined by Jeff.
Hello.
Hi. And shortly, Britt will be here at her usual time. We have two guests tonight. It's been a long time since we've doubled up on guests. We have two longstanding friends of the show, Grant Stoner. How's it going,
Hi.
bud?
Good. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, oh, it's great, and I'm glad you approached us because this is giving us I've needed a good, really topic heavy, serious kind of show. It's the kind of show that reminds us why we're doing this and not just bullshitting about our favorite video games. And then also joined by Veerender Jubbal. How's it going, bud?
Hey, thank you very much for letting me on.
Yes. Oh, I mean, anytime, right? I mean, that's true for both of you. It was true for Stormy last week. It's basically just there's a certain point you're close enough. You could just ask anytime, and we'll probably make space for you.
That's basically what I did.
Yeah, and we were like, hell yeah, absolutely. Let's have some good buds on. That's, especially if you've got a good topic of hey, man, here's something I want to bring some attention to. Absolutely. Save me the job of trying to do the news editor rundown of what's, worth talking about and what's not. We do have kind of a meaty show ahead of us tonight. So obviously we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been playing. We're going to talk a little bit. We're going to use the topic of the newly released Zelda game, Tears of the Kingdom, to talk about kind of what the process is like for actual journalists and freelancers in games media to do things like write guides. And has it not been updated? Oh no, I gotta fix that. I didn't fix the show title. I got distracted. But also talk about what it's like to have to try to pitch coverage and pitch article ideas and op-eds to various outlets. No, they can't. You can't just drop news.
Wow.
Okay,
It's a tradition. It's a tradition.
Just expansion pack. It's just Nintendo Switch Online stuff. It has to happen every Thursday. But when we are through with all of that, today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and we're going to talk a little bit, kind of springing off PlayStation showing off a little bit more of the Access controller, kind of the state of accessibility, in gaming, in the world in general. What do we need to do better? How can we help, either as industry professionals or as just, people on the sidelines who need to learn more and maybe learn what we need to be asking for? It's gonna be a good meaty night. Let's start off with what we've been playing, and I'm gonna kick it over to Grant first. Grant, what have you been spending your time on in these last couple of weeks?
I've been playing a roguelike deck builder called Wild Frost.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Similar to the vein of Monster Train with the different layers that you have to manage. I've really been itching for a new game in that sort of vein because I love Monster Train. I love Slay the Spire. I do have Zelda. I haven't played it yet. And I also have Jedi Fallen Order, or Jedi Survivor, which I actually would like to start playing hopefully this weekend. But I've just been so busy I haven't had time to really jump into it, so I've just been playing Wild Frost off and on.
Yeah. I'm kind of a sucker for those I fell in love with Slay the Spire back in the day, and Monster Train came along and really filled a lot of that same itch. I think a lot of those same randomized deck builder type of aspects are a big part of what I really loved about Midnight Suns, which was always going to be a mark for a Marvel game, but still. And V, I know you are huge on card games in general, but usually I've heard you talk about, stuff stuff that's based on existing card games that people collect cards and play.
Right, online TCG stuff, but I also do play. If it has cards of any kind, I'll play it. It just has a card game mechanic of any kind, collecting them. Another one is I can't remember the name, but it's it's like Mega Man Battle Network sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's that, and then there's what is that? There's an indie knockoff.
Yeah, that's yeah. I can't remember. I also like Floppy Knights. That's it's a SRPG, so it's a strategy tactical RPG, but you're using cards. And you're using like different plants and moving them around, which is on Game Pass as well. But there's a bunch of different stuff. I know Wild Frost is like a big one, but nobody. I put myself forward to cover it, but I couldn't get anybody to.
That's one I've been meaning to check out, and if it comes with Grand Seal of Approval, it's got more of my interest. I love games like that because, especially stuff where it's not like time sensitive, your actions, because as ADHD as I am, I love to, if I'm watching a movie or watching a show or something, I kind of need to be doing something else on the side. And that's something where I don't have to like, oh shit, I wasn't paying attention to the game long enough, and I've lost a round. It's giving me time to casually make the decision, on my own time. Love stuff like that. V, what have you been playing this last week? And I bet I've got some.
I'm here.
It's Britt. Hi, Britt.
I'm here. Hello.
Britt, we're gonna slightly interrupt this message for a different one. Do you have some good news to share?
I do have good news.
Yeah.
I am now employed. I got a job.
Oh, the long national nightmare is over.
It's been since November. And it's been rough, but we pushed through it, and Derek's not going to take credit for it, but I give him a lot of credit for that job.
No, you shouldn't. I did so little.
No, you did plenty. You got me in touch with your dad, and that's enough. Which sounds awkward.
Somebody clip that.
I promise.
Don't worry about it, guys. Don't worry about it. It's something on the side. Don't worry about it. But yes.
All right, I want to make something abundantly fucking clear. Okay? I want to make something abundantly.
I'm trying to figure out if John knew that this was like Britt's moment and decided to pick this to jump in.
I have no idea what was even being talked about. I just want to address
God.
something that Ib said in chat. I absolutely pitch with dog pictures, and it fucking works. That's how we got the Elden Ring review code.
I also sent pictures of beignets on my follow-up interviews.
I decided I miss my friends too much, so I'm here.
You are going to be back? Good. Yeah. Good. I'm glad. That does mean I got to change the whole fucking crew lineup on the side.
It's fine.
But that's
Don't worry
fine.
about it. Fuck it. We're riding by the seat
doing
of our
it
pants.
live.
We're doing it live.
Sorry, Britt. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. I was just talking about Derek getting me in contact with his dad.
I was gonna say, Britt got her fucking job. Finally, Britt got a fucking job.
I got a job, y'all, and it's a good one.
The phrasing there was just like, finally, Britt got a fucking job.
John absolutely Kanye West me.
About time.
He absolutely Kanye'd me.
Look, Britt, I'm real happy for you, and I'm gonna let you finish. But Final Fantasy VI is the greatest game of all time.
But I'm gonna let you finish. But I need to fucking shit talk Ibs real quick.
Yeah. Anyway, back to where we were before Britt appeared in good news. Yes,
I'm
good.
Celebrating.
Celebrate. V, my man, what have you been playing this last week? I bet I got a guess.
So I've been playing Zelda. I live in Hyrule now. It's a pretty quaint village, pretty quaint towns all around. Outside of that, I'm playing because I can't keep playing Zelda throughout the entire, because it's a work game. Like when you play a work game, you have to be in the mindset. So I'm playing Pokemon Unite as my fun game. I'm doing Yu-Gi-Oh! As usual. I played a bit of Honkai Star Rail. Just fun. I play Marvel Snap continuously. Cardfight Vanguard 0, which is shutting down next month, which I'm very sad about.
That's not the new one, is it?
No.
Okay.
This one's like 3 years.
All right.
Yeah, which is like, sucks so much.
3 seems like a pretty short amount of time for a game like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm trying to figure out how to like archive it in some sense, but I only have like a month. Like if I can at least like take out the card art assets or something, because like we keep losing live service games like every few months. Like, we lost Final Fantasy for Soldier, which I put a lot of time in. And I thought that was a great game. It was like a really great battle royale for Soldier. We lost Dragalia Lost. A lot of people played for like 7 years. And
wait, that's gone now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they had like a countdown and everything for that, and it's just like, how do you bring like 7 years of like assets and art
And
everything?
like you pay for that shit. Like gacha games are
Yeah.
they're pricey, and all to just
Preservation in the mobile space is in a really rough state when you
Yeah.
think about it.
like they need to start doing accounts or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can we give a real quick shout out to Ibs in the chat? It's fucking like what 3 o'clock in the UK right now. Like
Oh,
Ibs just
God,
being a
yeah.
fucking trooper in the chat.
A fucking trooper or just fucking depressed. Hey.
Sorry, 2 a.m. It's 2 a.m. It's only slightly
I know
less
what
early
that's
/
like.
late there. We love you, Ibs.
Yeah, man. Good
So-
dude. Good ass dude.
Veer, I got a question for you.
Yep.
How many? And you may have missed that. You may have said this, and I just missed it. How many dungeons are you in to Tears of the Kingdom?
Shrines, right?
No, like the actual like dungeons.
I
He's
just
like, I don't.
I'm like, okay, so like my weekend was just Skyview Towers, so that's completely done. So I went to explore
I'm the
whole
same
map.
fucking way. Like when I play
Right?
Spider-Man, I've got to unlock all the fucking towers before I do anything. It's a mental
and-
thing.
Right, and then I killed every Hinox not in the depths because I had to take pictures of every single one. So like my phone, like if somebody asked to see my phone, it would just be like 24 pictures of Hinoxes, all different ones, and then. So I'm just I'm not even talking to anybody. I'm not even like doing side quests or anything. I see like people are doing some temple stuff, and there's like some bird that's following people around. I'm just like, no, I'm just going around murdering mini bosses for guides because I have to take.
Okay. So I guess Veer, that just leaves how many Koraks have you crucified or burned alive
no.
or
Uh,
flung into pits or you guys have seen this shit, right?
The crucifying seems like a step maybe too far. I've had a little fun like catapulting them, but once
dude,
or twice.
people are
but-
literally crucifying Koroks and barbecuing them.
Spit roasting, yeah.
like just a Korok kebab.
It's
Like-
really fun enough to just put them on a cart and send them off into the horizon. like,
Yeah.
you know,
Like
it's-
it's not the same as people like you got like I don't know if you guys ever remember I don't know if you guys remember like in Red Dead Redemption people used to like be like, oh, I'm tying a woman on a train and putting her on the train tracks. Like that's worse than this because
I don't
a Korok-
trust a single person. Look, here's the thing. Anybody who's ever crucified a Korok, like I'm just here, like, you know what? COVID has hit all of us different. And like, however you're coping, whatever. But if you tied a woman to the train tracks in Red Dead Redemption, seek
people
help.
did that shit.
Seek help, my friend.
People absolutely did that shit. People
that's
did
a-
that shit.
a
There
choice
are people like in Tears of the Kingdom who are like, I'm being a Christian missionary and just like putting a cross, a big cross in every single town and like every single stable.
Some
and it's
people
like,
are just extremely abnormal.
it's like, come on, man, you need to log off, dude. Like, take a fucking break, man. Like, Jesus Christ.
They can't get doors slammed in their face on Zelda, so
It's
Mhm.
funny, you know, talking about the kind of order you're having to do things in because of the nature of this being a work game and not just a play for pleasure kind of game.
Yeah.
Is stuff I wouldn't think about because I'm definitely like that is simultaneously stuff that would really help if I had the structure of like, okay, no, I gotta hit all of these towers and then I gotta, you know, to like kind of work that's like a good method as opposed to I've just been running around a field pointing at things and going, I see that,
Right.
I'm gonna walk at that. And the
So,
result
like-
is I've made no progress on anything.
That's okay. I mean, I feel like I played like 30 or 40 hours, but I've done nothing. Like, even the way I'm approaching it. Okay, so I'm doing, for those that don't know, I'm doing the map and I'm linking every individual page and point from the Map Genie stuff to the IGN interactive map. So things like other writers are doing they're doing shrine guides, they're doing the written ones, they're doing video ones. So like every shrine, I'm linking that specific page onto the map point itself. So currently I finished. I mean, I'm like doing a bunch of stuff, and they have me kind of solo again with how I did with Scarlet and Violet, which was a massive project as well. But for like sky views, each Skyview tower has its own guides page on IGN's wiki, and some of them you just walk up and open them, like maybe 2 or 3 of them. But some of them are like, oh, it's raining in this area, but you need to burn down the thorns, but you can't burn down the thorns.
Dude, the fucking rain happens whenever you need it not to be happening.
Yeah.
It pisses me the fuck off.
And then like I needed blood moons I needed a blood moon to happen, right? Because I needed to take some pictures of Henoxes. And I'm like when I want a blood moon to happen, it doesn't happen. Because I'm like, I need to go see these two to take pictures of them. But even like the way I'm playing, so like I put light blessings into my stamina wheel first. Like, because it doesn't matter if I die in one shot. I need the stamina to get to places, just to cover the map more quickly and more easier. So like just all these different ways to approach it. Like not my editors were saying like, oh, you need to do this, but like if you're doing like map stuff, like when I was doing Arceus map coverage, I kind of broke the game with some of the stuff I did. So then. And even with Scarlet Violet, I broke the game and did some like stuff that wouldn't be allowed. But you know, it's to get around faster and get these points, and it's a big game. Like it's massive.
God.
I'm not even at the depths. I didn't even know there were depths. But the depths have its own map we have on the bottom of it.
And it's the size of fucking Hyrule itself.
Yeah.
Like it's and dude, like. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a big Dark Souls guy. Am I correct in saying that the depths gives off like huge Dark Souls vibes? Like, dude, it's fucking like scary down there. Like,
you know what it reminds me more of? Not that I need desperately to like reinforce that I am a Dragon's Dogma sicko, but if you play Dragon's Dogma and wander around anywhere out in the world map at night where it's pitch black and you've just got that little ass lantern light to go by, that level of tension, and like you don't know what you're going to come across, because Tears of the Kingdom, like I'm famously not a Breath of the Wild guy. I recognize that it's a magnificent game for people who weren't me, but
and like 50% of this podcast.
Right.
I love Breath of the Wild,
but Tears of the Kingdom is really hitting me quite different. As I think I might be in a weird subset of people who didn't like Breath of the Wild, but are deeply in love with Tears of the Kingdom. I think the greater like I think that the story content is a little bit more upfront, right? Which is something I need. I'm a big narrative person. I need narrative and characters to help pull me along, and there's a lot more of that early on.
There's been more story the first few hours of Tears of the Kingdom than the entirety of Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
They're very different games.
That was my issue.
Enemy variety, right? And like weapon, like all the little meat of like what makes the minute to minute stuff, like enemies, stuff like different types of weapons, and what you can do with the environment is like the fusing mechanic creates so much variety in the minute to minute in a way that didn't click with me with like Breath of the Wild's powers. There's a lot more weird little surprises that I will not even hint at. There's so many opportunities where if you are playing this game unaware of what is new to it, you will just run into, like, we can't not talk about the depths because it's huge and everyone's talking about the depths. That's a whole entire map layer of world that
very few have made it there at all. And like just from the main surface map, there's more than 800 Koroks on just the main surface map.
Yeah.
So it's like the depths has its own stuff, but there's so much stuff you could just do on the surface that
the surface would have already been one of the biggest and densest games I can think of. The temples, the dungeons are closer to a traditional Zelda dungeon for my taste, which is good. That's something I was kind of missing. The bosses I didn't much like the Water Blight, Thunder Blight, Fire Blight, Ganon. I didn't think they were good boss encounters from
weren't.
any
I agree.
aspect. They were bad fights. They were hard without a good, meaningful way to get around them. They weren't visually very interesting.
It was really just visually just the same boss over and over and over almost.
Yeah, it's just
like,
busy, messy, red. You know, they were
calamity
fucking
stuff.
Twizzlers with
Yeah.
weapons. Like, but you know, versus now we have a lot more variety in bosses and much more interesting boss encounters. So,
Okay.
like, to me, this is more of what I want out of this format of Zelda.
So I had asked this question before the game came out. And now that you guys have played it, do you think people need to play Breath of the Wild to play Tears of the Kingdom?
No.
I don't think so.
No.
I think
I never
everything you
played-
need to know. You go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, I was just gonna say I never played Breath of the Wild. I did Tears specifically because of Guide's work, but I think I don't think there's like a main narrative or story that you're not missing out anything. And like I'm playing Tears, and I'm like, I would love to play Breath of the Wild after I finish this and get through this.
Yeah.
Like much
Tears of the
later
Kingdom
on.
is a vastly superior, and I love Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Tears of the Kingdom is superior in literally every single way.
The
Single way.
The thing with Tears of the Kingdom is everything important narratively you need to know will get delivered to you when it's necessary for you to have that knowledge in order to understand where you're at.
Hold on.
You're good. I think the bigger thing for me is like my appreciation is definitely deepened by having played Breath of the Wild, because you run into characters from Breath of the Wild, then see how their lives have changed in, you know, the years in between. And that's very exciting, right? Right at the beginning. Again, it's kind of hard to spoil this because the internet has already gone nuts, but you run into Pura again very early.
Oh my dude,
right
the
at the
internet
beginning
is
of the
so
game.
fucking thirsty over Pura.
Right. I'm
Like-
kind of mad that you're that thirsty because it means that I can't love her as deeply because I have to be a hipster, but
How do you serve cunt in an elderly way?
exactly like this.
How do you serve cunt in a Zelda way?
Well, you know,
Jesus
but
Christ.
but like it is really like the jokey thirsty posts aside, like it is very cool to see like Pura was stuck in like weird baby big head form in Breath of the Wild, and you come across her and she's, you know, kind of reversed her aging back towards, you know, being like an adult, and it's, you know, her personality has kind of mellowed out a little bit from being as hyperactive as she was, and you know, seeing how like new characters meld into the cast, stuff like that I'm a sucker for. I'm a big narrative and characters person. So
I do want to say, like, for I know for sure that this game is going to sell more than Breath of the Wild, like 100%.
Oh,
Probably,
for sure.
yeah.
Like
For sure.
that's not a question. Yeah.
I think it already did, right? Didn't
It already
do
sold
that?
more, so it
10
already
million.
sold more than like Skyward Sword did its entire
Okay.
run.
Yeah.
Like until Breath of the Wild, Zelda, people don't really realize this. Zelda wasn't a traditionally massive seller. Like they sold very
sold
well.
a few million. They were always
But-
doing
but-
good, but
But like
Yeah.
compared to like, you know, like the Mario franchise, Zelda was way below that.
It was
but
always a
Bre-
system seller for sure.
yeah.
But like Breath of the Wild legit turned Zelda into, in my opinion, probably at least for the Switch generation, a bigger franchise than Mario. I would say right now Zelda is their number one franchise.
I think part of that is that what is a big seller has changed a lot, because back in the GameCube PS2 days, if you sold 3 million, that was like fucking incredible, right? If
Yeah.
you hit 1 million, that was a system seller. That was you made bank. And nowadays 1 million's nothing. You know, so Zelda, I would actually maybe say Zelda used to do big numbers, but what was big numbers around the time Twilight Princess came out or Wind Waker came out is peanuts when you got games
Yeah.
selling 10, 30, 50 million copies, you know, when they're big success. How many copies is GTA 5 at? it's triple
some
digits.
ungodly fucking number, dude.
It's triple
Like,
digits of millions. So
150 million.
God.
Jesus Christ.
No. I don't like
I mean, I
that.
have 3 copies, so I'm part of the problem.
I don't.
Oh,
I don't
Jeff.
say this out of dislike for Grand Theft Auto 5. Like, I think it's a fun game. It's just a matter of like that's too much money.
Yeah.
Even if most of those copies were sold at $20, like
Do you guys mind if I go next?
Yeah, go right ahead. You got some
Because-
non-Zelda
well-
shit?
Well, first, I want to make sure Veer doesn't have anything else that he's been playing this week he wants to talk about.
Oh, well, I mean, I linked the map in the chat if people want to look over that. It's still a work in progress, of course. I
Yeah.
don't know what the work
We
will-
can come back to Zelda and do the journalism
no.
angle in a bit here, but
Yeah, it's all good.
So, aside from Zelda, which we'll get back into, I love it so far. I have been playing the Chrono Trigger tracks in Theat Rhythm.
Ooh,
Okay.
those came out.
Those came out today. Or I'm sorry, yesterday. And if Ibs is still in chat, I'm about to annoy the shit out of him. All it did was make me want Chrono Trigger on Switch that much fucking more.
John, you
like-
cannot bully our fucking Square Enix influencer
I
manager
will
guy.
absolutely bully him because I like, and people are like, John, you got the pixel remasters on Switch. You're not allowed to port beg for anything else. Oh, fuck
We
off.
can't
I
stop
will
you.
port beg all goddamn day long. You think that's going to stop me? You think that's going to stop me? I have a fucking revelation for you. Now that I have the pixel remasters, I'm happy. Like, I'm perfectly fucking happy.
I'm only going to be
overjoyed.
more
This is one of the
annoying.
greatest years in gaming ever, right? Ever. Because the pixel remasters. But someone explained to me why Chrono Cross came out on Switch before Chrono Trigger did. And playing the tracks on, and this is just wave 1 of the Chrono Trigger DLC, which, by the way, Brit, they've even got like the fucking backgrounds. Like they've got like, Wings of Time, or I'm sorry, Corridors of Time, the Battle of Magus, and it's got like that statue. It's got like his battle area in the back. Like it's for the theme of Chrono Trigger, I think it's called End of Time. You've got the actual End of Time with the lamppost and the fucking fence and the bucket, and you've even got the little portals in the background where you jump back and forth between time periods. It's so fucking good. And playing like doing those tracks in Theat Rhythm is just such a fucking treat. And it's only wave 1 of the Chrono Trigger tracks. Like wave 2 is coming later this year. And playing through it, I was just like, God, what I wouldn't fucking give for a pixel remaster version of Chrono Trigger. Not HD 2D, not HD 2D. There are some games that I feel need the HD 2D format, right? Like Live Alive is an example. Live Alive visually from the Super Nintendo has not aged well. That game needed the HD 2D facelift. Dragon Quest III is an NES game. Hasn't really aged well visually. It needs the HD 2D facelift. Chrono Trigger is still one of the most beautiful pixel art games ever to be released. Ever. And from Grant and Veerender nodding, I know that they are men of taste. I know that they are men of taste and style.
I never played it.
By their reaction, but you recognize Veer. You recognize that it's a beautiful fucking game. Doesn't need the HD 2D remake.
Right. I had like a bootleg because like everybody modded their PS1 back then. So I had,
Hell
like,
yeah, they did.
Yeah, so I had like a bootleg of Chrono Trigger that, you would just put it in and you could only watch the opening for the PS1. And I would like constantly do that because the PS1 opening, it's very heavily into like Akira Toriyama's like design, and it's an FMV and everything. That's as far as I've ever gotten to playing. So I would put that in, watch the opening, and then I'd play like Yu-Gi-Oh! That would work, or other stuff. But like I would constantly, at least like once a day, just put it in to just like watch that PS1 opening. That's the only closest I've had to that.
You need to go through and play the entire game because it's one of the greatest games of all time. And playing those tracks on fucking Theat Rhythm was a goddamn blessing. And I just want to give a shout out to Enoriand, who is Josh in chat. And guys, just so you know, I'm planning, and myself and Finn at least are planning on attending PEX West. And I am pitching a panel where we rank the best Final Fantasy battle systems. And Finn is on that panel. I'm going to moderate it if it gets approved. And Josh is our first outside of the podcast recruit for that panel because Josh is attending PAX West. So just to let you guys know.
I wish I had money. I'd go.
I wish you could come. I wish you could come. You know what? Maybe I'll get you over there. Who knows? But I will do whatever.
I'm not
Don't
calling
forget,
you daddy just because
we got
you do
podcast
that.
money.
We don't have as much podcast money as you think, but that's okay.
Well, whatever. Whatever.
Crowdfunded.
At any
If
rate,
people want to help us get to events, they can put a little money into our Patreon. There we
they
go.
could. Look at
That's my one
Derek,
plug a
there's
show.
There's a link in chat to our Patreon.
Will
How
I
did
call
that
Josh
happen?
Daddy? Sure, why not?
How did that? Don't call him Daddy. I'm your own Daddy. I just want to say real quick that I had a really bad day today, and I wasn't going to be on the podcast, and I came in late because I didn't want to feel like I had to force it or fake it, but I'm not having to do those things.
I'm glad you're feeling better, and I'm glad you're here to hang out because historically, when you hang with buds, it makes you feel a lot better no matter what's going on in your life.
It does.
So,
It does. And I just wanted
that's
to
the way
thank
you
all
are. That's not the way everybody works, but that's the way you tend to work.
Literally all of you live with me here right now. I wanted to thank you because I feel a lot better now.
Mwah.
And of course I've been playing Zelda. Jeff, what about you?
Making sure I'm not muted so Britt can't give me shit.
She's not here.
She would be hiding
never know.
And come back specifically
She's
to
gonna
talk
pop
shit
out
to
in
me.
camera behind him.
But I deserve it usually. I haven't been playing much. I actually have been watching a couple movies. I caught up on some Marvel stuff. I'm not trying to be spicy. I watched The Eternals. I fucking loved that movie, man. I thought that was fun.
Love what you love. Love what you
I thought that was a fun, cool movie. Like, people complain that Marvel movies look ugly and like everything's just like a CGI mess. I thought like the visuals in it were really good. I thought the acting was like, it wasn't perfect. It's a Marvel movie, whatever. It's fine, but I had a good time. And then I watched Wakanda Forever and like kind of let down, honestly. Again, maybe it's like reversal expectations. I was expecting Eternals to be really bad. I was expecting Wakanda Forever to be like both
Vicky
were
fell
still
asleep
good.
during Wakanda Forever.
No, but it did feel like really long. Like a lot of really good stuff, but like, sorry, I'm going off topic because I haven't been playing.
No,
much.
dude, talk, man.
And it's just like one of my problems with Marvel movies lately. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in theaters a couple weeks ago. That's a great movie. But that one, there's like Adam Warlock, and then in Wakanda Forever, there's Riri. I can't remember her last name, but like, it's like these extra characters. I'm like, they basically have no reason to be in the movie. Like, they're just like a distraction. So I don't know. It just felt like messy, and it's a hard. Like, the first Black Panther is like hands down my favorite Marvel movie. That's just a fucking banger. Killmonger, like, everyone, it's been talked to death, but like, how do you top that as a villain? Like,
I wish they
had.
hadn't killed Claw. Like, Andy Serkis in anything is always
Yes,
a good
Claw
thing.
would have made this movie better. A little bit more Andy Serkis.
The fucking sass.
Ulysses Claw, the missing component.
He's like, give me my, where's my mixtape?
I will not take this Namor slander. I will.
Yeah.
He was.
I did really like Namor, but
He was.
Namor was
cool.
great.
Performance was good. Just like, I don't know, like, fine, I guess. So other than that, I want to play Tears of the Kingdom.
Also, Jeff, I'm proud of you for not being muted when you first started talking.
Aw, thank you, Britt.
She was fucking listening.
I wanted to play Tears of the Kingdom, but I'm broke because did you know it costs $1,200 to get your cat's teeth cleaned? So
I just spent like $750 on getting Athena's teeth cleaned. So
yeah, that sounds about right because I'd be about
Sucks.
$1,200.
Jeff, here's the
bad.
wild thing. I literally have a Japanese code for Breath of the Wild, and the Japanese version is in the English language, so it's yours.
So that I've actually been replaying Breath of the Wild, unless you meant Tears of the Kingdom.
No. I made Tears of the Kingdom.
We'll see. I'm replaying Breath of the Wild right now to get that Zelda fix, and like it's good. Like I think I talk shit about it because it's just fun and because it like eggs on everyone else on the podcast who doesn't like it. But I've always enjoyed, like, it's the only Zelda. So my history of Zelda games is I play every second one for 5 hours, and I'm like, this is kind of cool. I can't figure out how to solve this puzzle. I give up. I'm done. Goodbye. And like, Breath of the Wild was the first one I finished. I put 60 hours into it. I played it on the Wii U. It was fine on the Wii U. I'm the one person who played it on that platform.
You are like the only person I know who played it on the Wii U.
I was like, I have a Wii U. Why am I going to go buy a Switch? I could just play it on my Wii U. Like, there wasn't any other reason to get a Switch at the time. So, it was fine. But no,
You're
like,
not
it's a
wrong.
good game. It's a really good game. It's just, I think like I can appreciate some of the unique stuff, but I just never like quite loved it the way, like, it wasn't that like, you know, on that other plane from everything else. Like, it's a very good open world game, but the thing I liked about it is, like, in old games, I would like get to a dungeon. We were just talking about like traditional Zelda dungeons, and you would need like a specific item or thing either to like get there, like to cross a certain area. And sometimes it wasn't super clear where to find that thing. Like, or I went to the wrong area first and I wasn't supposed to go there yet. I was supposed to go somewhere else. And Breath of the Wild kind of solved all that for me. And I understand it had an impact. It's the same problem Ubisoft runs into with their narrative lately, where the approach of like do anything in any order and go anywhere in the world right away is really cool in how you can like bypass things and give you that freedom. But like inevitably you can't have like that traditional linear narrative. But for me, it made the game playable because like I got stuck in a couple of shrines or like a dungeon and I could kind of just like cheese it and get past it. And the game feels like, I think everyone agrees, it encourages you to do that. And that's what and that stuff still holds up. But like, yeah, replaying it, I still have all the same problems. It's been talked to death. I'm not like, the weapon durability isn't the worst thing in the world. I'm not going to die on that hill, but it's still not, I just don't think it's fun. Or at least like, I don't like not knowing how much like durability is left in an item, but yeah, I'm having a good time with it. It's scratching the Zelda itch. My plan is to like, if I can avoid FOMO, is to play Tears of the Kingdom on Switch 2 in like a year and a half. Hopefully with
What are you
hoping.
talking about, Jeff? There's no Switch 2. Like you must be thinking about the Switch Pro.
No, Switch Pro is dead. Switch Pro is Switch 2. But
Yeah, something Jeff just said. Can I point out that like I think it's very, very clever, and it almost feels like Nintendo is in on the joke with the weapon durability thing, because this go around
The weapon
like, all the
durability is so much worse.
well,
Oh, no,
well,
what
like
are you
all
doing?
the weapons are decayed. Like they're all decayed. And it's basically Nintendo going like, "Hey, you guys wanted to complain about weapon durability? Check this shit
Here's a
out."
sword
Like,
that breaks in 3 uses.
maybe
you
I
know?
won't play this game.
Well, but the gimmick, Jeff, is all about like fusing things to the weapons and how you combine like materials and weapons into. So like the joke is like, yeah, an unfused weapon is usually going to be something that breaks real easy, but that's encouraging you to play with that really central mechanic, so that you see like.
So the weapon is just like the foundation.
It's
for,
kind
like,
of, yes,
right.
treat it like,
Okay,
and you could put,
interesting.
if you have a sword, you could put, you know, like a moblin like claw on it,
Yeah.
or like a, you know, a fucking Keese eyeball, right? Why would you stick an eyeball at the end of the sword? I don't know. It works. It makes it slightly better. It makes it more durable. It does a
Also-
little more damage. You can put a stick on the end of another stick. You can put a sword at the end of another sword. If you feel like, you put a sword on the end of a stick. You can put a mine cart on your shield and use it like a skateboard.
It's fucking
Yeah.
great. Also, I just want to point out, Jeff, it is much, much, much easier to get the Master Sword in Tears of the Kingdom than it is in Breath of the Wild. In Breath of the Wild, you needed to finish 120 shrines to
No.
get enough hearts to.
I just did it.
Well, I
I just got the Master Sword after doing one Divine Beast. You only need, I think you need to do. I did 38 shrines to get the Master Sword.
Maybe it was 38, or maybe it was 38 or 40 shrines. No, I'm sorry. 120 shrines are the amount of shrines of the game.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
like 40 shrines to get the Master Sword. In this, you just need to do like 15.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it is super fast.
Let's not talk too much because I haven't ran into it yet, so I don't, you know.
If I
Yeah.
play like, if I jump into this after finishing Breath of the Wild, is it going to feel like too much deja vu? I know you said it's like
No, so like
No.
none of the powers come back from Breath of the Wild. So right there,
You have a totally different set of powers.
yeah.
Okay.
And because the weapon
I'm mostly thinking like
crafting
the world and stuff like that.
world is different enough too, and the way you need
Okay.
to approach it. So I don't think it would feel deja vu. I think it would feel like a sequel.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
not fucking DLC like a couple of brain rotted folks have suggested.
Who has not spoken up about what they've been playing this
I think
week?
it's Brit.
All right, so it's just Brit. So Brit,
Did
You wanted
Grant
to-
go?
well, Brit.
Yeah, before you jumped on.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So Brit, you wanted to go last actually because what you've been playing ties into
One of the main topics of
right.
tonight,
So why
yes.
don't you go ahead?
First and foremost, I've still been playing Final Fantasy IV. I'm actually really enjoying it. It's difficult, but I like that I can manage the difficulty better than I could in 6.
How
just
far are
with,
you,
like,
Brit?
I just became a paladin, and I'm heading back to Baron to find Sid. So I don't know how long the game is,
I
but
love you texted me out of nowhere. Golbez is a bitch.
Did she really?
Yeah. Just I was at work. We hadn't been texting that day. I just got the text for Golbez is a bitch, and I was like, well,
such a bitch. And setting other people to do his bidding. That's bitch fucking.
Like, Britt, having played like through Endwalker, like how does it hit you to see all this like Final Fantasy IV stuff in its original form?
So I'm actually purposely not going to play the next patch of Final Fantasy XIV when it comes out. I want to beat 4 first and then go into the Final Fantasy XIV stuff, which is why I haven't been playing in so long. And I think it's really fun. I think the characters are cute. Palom and Porum are my favorite so far. They're just, one's a little shit and one's just so sweet and just kids, man.
Fucking kids, dude.
And so I'm so mad. So like when I was talking to y'all last week, I had just started the game and I did the double, I had like did all the EXP boost and the money boost. And then like I got to a certain point where it was like, okay, that like the game's just a little too easy. I'm going to go ahead and just put it back down to normal and I'll just have higher level up characters.
Mistake.
Mistake, because once you turn paladin, you fucking lose all those levels that you grinded on
Yep.
Cecil. And I was like, you gotta be fucking
You level up
kidding me.
faster, so you'll make it.
Gotta be fucking kidding me. So I've kept the gold on, the gil on, and I'm trying to now, I guess, playing the game in its original form, because now all my characters are the same fucking level. And it's been so you want to know what my first ever death in the game was?
Was it against one of the goblins that you encounter as soon as you leave Baron?
No. I defeated Scarlamong or whatever his name is. And then I went
Scarmeleon.
Yeah, thank you.
Scarmeleon, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went into the thing to become a paladin, and I lost to my Dark Knight self.
That happens surprisingly often to people.
I had to do that entire
I'll be honest.
fucking sequence over again. I didn't know that you could fucking die. I was just like, he's saying to like sheath my sword, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that shit. Like, he's killing me. What am I supposed to do?
His voice cannot be fucking trusted.
Yeah,
Trust nobody, not even yourself.
And I almost died to Scarmeleon the first time around, and the second time I somehow like steamed him, and I don't know. It's just weird. Like, the difficulty can be weird depending on how lucky you are and like what characters enemies fight, which is strange to me. That's like, it's something I haven't encountered in some time.
All I'm gonna say, Britt, is you're in for a ride at the final boss.
Oh my god. No, see, now you're gonna make me want to turn the EXP back on.
I'm not. Play how you want. I would highly recommend leaving the XP on, because Raw's in chat and Raw was just playing this game, and it's like
Raw's like, turn the XP back on.
if you don't have the boost, the spikes when you like, if you're fine with grinding, I guess it's not a big deal. But it's like the spikes will come, and I don't know. For me, like,
turn the EXP back on.
No, Britt, they actually like rebalance the difficulty for all the final bosses in the console releases. The final boss of Final Fantasy IV is like, I have never died ever in my entire history of playing Final Fantasy IV, and I died 3 times on stream. And like, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
So what? Baigen isn't he the blonde guy?
Baigen is the blonde guy.
Yeah, that you meet in the castle?
Yes.
Yeah, I fought him. He was okay. Do you fight him again?
No, but it's just trust me. And
that's why it's weird. Like, I had no problem with him, and then Rar and a couple other people in the Discord were like, he's a nightmare, and Brit like had no problem. It's just like, it seems like all over the place.
It's wild, right? Like, it's like, I think the game is purely based on like don't get me wrong, I got close to dying, but I did not die. But
Well,
it's
and-
just it's strange to me. Like
And
all
John's
I
like
do-
talking up the final boss, and I had like no problems with the final boss. But I had
strange.
4 times XP.
Well,
boost
I
on it.
guess Jeff is just a fucking pro gamer over
That's
here.
what I'm
Gamer.
learning. I'm just good at Final Fantasy, man.
But yeah, he was fucking annoying. But I like that's literally the last thing I did in the game was I
So-
fought him and
So Britt, I'm gonna ask you a favor.
okay.
I know what game you're going to talk about next.
Yes.
I think we've got time for like 2 big topics tonight. What you've been playing ties into one of those topics.
Right.
I just want to make sure, Derek, did you want to do the accessibility stuff first?
Well, how about this? I think we will probably have time to do that a little bit briefly, but I think we do. I do want to go back to Zelda for a little bit because we talked a little bit about how we got some good insight into like how having to do this for a guide is kind of changing like the way in which Veerender's having to play this game. But I kind of want to hear a little bit more about like how playing these sorts of games and how playing big games at release can like inspire like pitches and ideas for like non-standard coverage. But like I don't think it's gonna like inside baseball right now. I don't think it's gonna take that much time. I think I do want to spend a good chunk of time on it. Save that thing for last. Yeah.
Accessibility
okay?
or
What you're
The-
wanting to talk about, Brett?
okay.
Britt, I want to make sure you're okay with that.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yee. Hell yeah. But I'm assuming you've been playing some Overwatch.
I've been
been-
unfortunately playing some Overwatch.
Yeah.
She's been doing some Overwatch.
Yeah. That's more complicated. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
so did we want to do the guide writing first, Derek? Is that what you said?
Well, obviously we kind of jumped around. We've talked a little about how, I thought it was fascinating hearing some of how playing like Breath of the Wild, knowing you're doing it for a guide, being like, a beat that you are for sure on has changed. Like the thought that you would have to put all your points in stamina just because it's important to get everywhere and see all the things. Stuff I would never have to think about in that process. But also like, V and Grant, I've seen both of you with major game releases, talk about you're playing something big that's in the public eye and, talking about like, hey, if there's, I'm shooting my shot, like this outlet or like any outlet, like I've got an angle I want to cover that I'm not seeing people cover, and what is that like as a freelancer, right? Sometimes getting hit, what causes that inspiration to strike you, do you think? And what is it like being stuck with that as you try to find a place where you can actually make some money off of that, it being your job?
Grant can go first.
I was just about to say you can go first.
Well, I beat you to it, so you go.
Shit. So for me, I approach every big release with 3 pillars. I approach it with an accessibility review. So I go to the sites I refer that I know have done this kind of coverage. I say, you want to review, it's going to explore the options and game design to show how accessible it is for primarily physically disabled players, because I find it difficult to review based on disabilities I don't have, or don't have that lived experience, because I'm not doing everything right. For deaf and hard of hearing, for example, subtitle usage, I don't really know like what makes a good subtitle, so I tend to stay away from that. If that gets accepted, I then move to a developer feature where I look to interview the developers of the game, explore how they made it, what was the most difficult process, how it's influencing the industry or maybe just the studio, so I can teach disabled consumers what developers are doing to make their games playable. And then finally, if it's a game with like unique play styles, like Elden Ring, for example,
Yeah.
I'll do a feature on how disabled players are interacting with the game, what they're using, their builds, their issues, what they want to be said to developers and to the community. So I'm basically covering my perspective, the developer's perspective, and then the community's perspective. Because for so long in the gaming industry, disabled people really haven't had a voice. They've usually been represented by a small handful of people, and this is not a slight to them. But what I've found is it's difficult to accurately convey how accessibility works and how disabled people interact if you're only listening to, 5 or 10 people. So I always try to make sure that my features go immediately to community members and developers so they can bridge that gap and better understanding what makes the game work, what doesn't, what able-bodied people need to understand when they're interacting with disabled people on social media or even in lobbies and such. For me, the places I pitch to are familiar enough with these story ideas that usually if I get rejected, it's a budget issue. It's not really we're not interested in this. Which years ago, that wasn't the case. I was really like, hey, you want me to write about this? And right now, it's just not a part of the market for us. So it has shifted tremendously in the 4 years I've been doing this.
Well, that's I feel like I've seen that kind of in real time, like with you especially too, because I remember seeing like you when you were more, which was around the same time like I was starting in SDGC and having to pay more attention to the actual games media sphere and like people who were in it. But I definitely feel like I've seen you going from the kind of having to do the out loud begging of like, will somebody please take this? Like, this is stuff that needs to be talked about, to you've got a few outlets that you can kind of reliably go to for those kinds of stories. And that's good to see it, because it makes me feel like there's been some progress on that front.
It's very like I can actively look at my taxes. Is that last year or this year? I don't know. When did we pay taxes? April?
April. Yeah, it's like April.
I actually owed money with my taxes. And that was the first time in my freelance career where I've actually had to owe money. That was a really big, like, this is maybe a thing that's actually happening. So, I mean, it was awful. I had to pay, the government money, but also it was like, hey, I have to pay the government money.
A weird position to be in after so long, huh?
I can't remember the last time I actually got like money back from the government. I literally can't remember.
Every 2 weeks.
Shut the fuck up, Derek.
Derek.
Swap that tea.
Just fuck all as fuck off as far as you possibly can. Imagine the longest.
He's
distance.
not wrong. You could be mad, but he's not fucking wrong.
No, that's fine. He can be right all he wants. But I want Derek to imagine the furthest distance between where he is right now and where he could possibly be, and fuck off that entire distance. That entire distance.
I'm really proud of you, Derek. That was a good one.
Yeah, but put a pin in everything that Grant was just saying, because so much of that is, we're going to get into a little bit more detail here shortly. But before we do that, I do want to turn over to V for a little bit, because I've seen you I've seen you doing kind of the hustle a lot, right? Where you're playing big games and you're like, I feel like I have unique insight into some aspect of this game, especially bringing unique cultural insight, right? And like, can I please get somebody to put a little attention on that? You know, it's maybe not as far along on the level of progress, because I do feel like even progressive media can be very blind to, like, you know, Sikhs in general, right? In the population, in culture, in, like, you know. But I see you push that angle a lot when you're trying to, like, hey, this is like, I see things that your writers are not seeing. Please come to me, right? Please give me the opportunity. I'm begging for it. I'm hungry for it. You know, and
You know, I feel the same way about some things. So
Jesus fucking Christ, Britt.
we are on one tonight, folks.
Calm down.
But like, what?
Show some decorum.
Veerender, what like inspires you the most when you're playing these big games that you are not already like on a gig for, right? You're just playing something, you're going like, God, I wish I could fucking write about this. What usually is it?
Sometimes I'm like, being a game journalist in like 2023, I want to be a game journalist in like 2003, where like you just like do the easiest fucking pitches. Like you can put a few sentences together and like right there, game journalist. But now I have to be like, oh, how does the authoritarianism work in tandem with the gameplay in a progressive manner in a roguelike or something, right? And it's just very good pitches, of course. And the way, so I'll be playing like whatever. And sometimes just like on a guides aspect, I'll be like, oh, this is how I would guide it. This is how it would work. But then on any aspect of like race or social injustice or even accessibility or disabled activism of any kind, I have lots of pitches. Like for Zelda, I have 3 or 4 race pitches that I'm just trying to figure out, but I'm having to do guides for it, and that's not an issue. But if it wasn't a game like Zelda, then it's like if you don't get the coverage or pitch out at that time, then they're gonna say no because it's not in the it's not in the audience anymore for whatever reason.
Like you got to strike while that iron's hot.
Yeah, like so I'll give 2 examples. Like one of the worst feelings as a writer is to get a kill fee. And a kill fee is when you submit an article and your editor will be like, this is too much work to edit, or they don't see the vision that you do, and you get maybe 50% of what it was. So maybe like you're going to get paid 200 USD and you get paid 100 USD, or even like maybe 75 USD because they didn't go live with publishing it. And it makes you feel like a horrible writer and just like a person that you took up any space whatsoever. It's happened twice. But like the thing is, I had one for talking to developers of color on NFTs because every sort of like intersection and axes that hurts marginalized people will hurt people of color on the axes no matter what. Like even with like disability activism, it's when people there are more disabled people of color, and they're more people of color are more likely to be disabled due to COVID and health regulations and those issues. So then even though the space is sometimes like very white, and there's less disabled people of color in those spaces that are advocating for it, even though those are that's the population that's the most and that faces more hurdles. And there are some disability activists that are white who they'll always put like a silent like white in front of their activism, and you can very easily tell that. So when they focus on like marginalizations in a game, or accessibility, like reviewing for a game, they'll focus mainly just like on a general audience, but sometimes that general audience just becomes like not including people of color who are the most highly susceptible to be disabled and are disabled, like we've seen with COVID statistics is a good example. Yeah, so back to kill fees. So two pieces I had was I wanted to cover Daisy Quest, which was a TTRPG role-playing thing similar to like Critical Role, if you've seen that, but having a full cast of Daisy people, and that's never been done before. So I got a kill fee for that as well because my editor was like, couldn't see the vision again. So like it makes you feel like absolute garbage, like because you're just like you're pitching these pieces that are good pieces, and sometimes your editors are not going to see that because they're not on that marginalization, and there's too many white editors that'll be like,
absolutely.
yes,
Like,
on the. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, there's, like, I can only imagine how much shit gets turned down, not just from you, but other marginalized writers, because they don't see the value in it, because they're not experiencing what you're writing about. Like, it's shitty, right? Like, it's shitty.
Yeah, like a lot of writers will think like, oh, maybe my pitch wasn't good or it wasn't interesting, and it's like, but you have to remember, like, it was accepted and it wasn't followed through for various reasons. So that one was for Daisy Quest and Daisies and Dragons, and I got a kill fee from Polygon. It like sometimes the editor just doesn't see, and then I only had like one day until the Kickstarter for Daisy Quest ended, and I needed, like, I already put in too much work, and I'm like, I need to like get this piece published. I need to salvage it. I need to do that not for myself, but just for like an integral part of putting the time and effort into it. So I sent it to a Wired editor, Games Wired editor, who is an editor of color, Black editor that focuses on games, and I was able to get that, and I got more money, a lot more money for being on Wired. But it's interesting that the two times I got kill fees were because I pitched very heavily racialized pieces that
Right.
focused on people of color and creators of color in those spaces, but both editors were white, and they just didn't see the value. Or like, it's interesting because like for the Polygon one, it was like, oh, the Kickstarter is going to end, I can't, this needs another 2 rounds of edits. And I sent it to my mate at Wired and did the round of edits and then published it on Wired. Like, so it's doable. I just don't, like, it was doable for them to do that, but they didn't. And that's okay sometimes, when you're on like a very close type of thing, like very, very little time. But getting a kill fee makes you feel like shit. Like, it makes you feel like absolute fucking garbage. Like, you're getting maybe 30% of the how much you wanted, and then if it doesn't come out, then that's just a full waste of a piece.
Yeah. I don't think people see like the struggle and the amount of work that goes into being a freelancer in these fields. Like, being a freelancer in these fields in general, and what the hustle has to be, how much work goes into it, like how little pay actually comes out per hour's work. Like, this is not like something you get into because you want to live in a fucking gated community. And then like how that compounds, like you pointed out, like when you're talking about not just issues or pieces of interest surrounding people of color, but even like further marginalized people of color, right? Because not all things are equal, right? And I can imagine there's probably a lot of outlets who might be interested in, an African American angle on something, for example, that might turn their nose up at something that talks about for example, an all Daisy, cast in tabletop, right? Because I guess maybe they're looking at math and going like, that's just such a small group of people, right? Or maybe they're not even thinking about it that deeply. It's hard because I may be white, but I'm that super naive kind of person. It's just like, I want to hear that kind of stuff, right? Like, I know I'm ignorant and I want to learn and I want those, but I am also very famously not an editor of any outlet. But like, yeah, I just think it's valuable, right? For especially a lot of our listeners who are mostly just enthusiasts to hear the amount of work that goes into every guide, every article, every op-ed that they read, that comes from a freelancer, and not a staff writer, and how hard sometimes it is to get stuff about race, stuff about like the closer you are to being white, straight, cis, Christian or atheist, able-bodied, like the less difficult it is for your outlook on things to be shared.
Yep.
So,
and I think like not to I don't want to ever compare myself to like, I'll never know what it's like to be marginalized, but the only way I can kind of like relate to this, I guess, is I guess what I'm saying is like I'm not defending like editors who just don't get it. I think that's why diversity in like your staff, whatever company you work for, if it's like a rating or anything else, is so important, because it's like it's a diversity of perspectives, and the audience is there. Like the audience for people that will get that piece is there, and it's big, but you need to make sure you have the right people at the table to like see the vision, like V said. But like for me, like again, the only way I can describe it is I was fortunate enough to like not really have a lot of adversity early in my life, and even since being on this podcast the first few years I was here, a lot of us struggle with anxiety and depression, and I like John would do the support class podcast, and I would see all the events from people like about all the struggles, and like I could like listen to it and hear it, but like I didn't get it. I was like, and not to say like they're making it up or like they don't, but it's just like until you experience something, whether that's like mental illness or discrimination or any kind of marginalization, like until you actually live that, you can never really like get it by just someone explaining it to you. And I think the important thing for editors, I guess, like is to kind of say like, I don't get it, but I'm going to take a chance because I believe in this. And it sounds like that's not happening, but the easier way is just to like hire more people with different backgrounds, because the more that you have, you're going to have more people that are like, oh, I get this. This is good. And we need to tell this story. We need to share this kind of view, because people will like this, and this will do good numbers for us on our site. Like it's why do you want to run the same story everyone else is? Everyone wants that unique angle. They want that topic that their place is kind of the spotlight for it. I would hope at least that's what the journalism field wants. And like if you have everyone who has the same background, you're not going to get that. It's the end result is all your sites are going to look the same as well.
Yeah, I think people need to get like comfortable with the idea, especially white, able-bodied, straight, cis, all of the above types of folks need to get used to the idea that they're not going to see and understand everything, no matter how much they try, no matter how much they listen, matter how much they learn, because you can't live someone else's experience. And
one
like
of the most important lessons I ever learned.
The important thing is to learn how to give it over to somebody else, right? And say, okay, I've got this writer coming to me who wants to give me a perspective on like, a South Asian perspective on this particular game, for example, right? And like, I don't know shit about like, I couldn't even tell you the difference between various South Asian countries. Like, that's not my area of expertise, but this is a writer who comes from that racial background, and I'm going to trust that they know more about what they're talking about than I do, and that their perspective is valuable on that subject, right? Like there's just a point where you have to use your own limits as a reason to give it over to somebody else.
But you just have to understand. Oh, Britt, I'm sorry.
I think it was V.
No, go ahead. I'll go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize who was trying to speak. No, I was just going to say, like that was a lesson that I had to learn, right? Like I'm a straight white guy, and the whole world revolved around me for a large portion of my life. But once you start to You know, I mean, I grew up conservative, or like, you know, like I used to be a right wing guy, but over time, you know, you just have to do what I did, and one, branch out and embrace viewpoints other than your own, because you're not going to learn anything if you don't. And two, understand that while you may be the person in the room with the most expertise in a certain trade or skill, that doesn't mean you're the person in the room with the most expertise on a particular on a particular lifestyle. And there's a really, really, really important distinction between the two, right? Like learning a trade and being an expert in something that you have trained to do is much different than being an expert that in something that just comes with being black, for example. You know, like I will never know what it's like to be unjustly racially profiled by a police officer. You know, I will never know what it's like to be disabled and have people look at me like I'm incapable of the things that they are. It's not something I'm ever going to understand, and so I leave it to people like V and Grant to educate me on those things. And when they speak up, it's my job to shut up and listen, because if you don't shut up and listen, this just goes for everyone. Like if you spend all your time talking, you're not ever going to actually learn anything. So every now and then we all need to learn to shut our fucking mouths and listen to people who know better. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Disability is the one unique thing where it can happen to anyone.
Well,
at any
you know
time.
what, Grant,
So
let's
you're
talk about
good.
that, right? Grant, let's talk. That's a great segue. Grant, what is today?
Today is Disabled Christmas, or Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It's a day where industries across the world highlight their accessible innovations and the disabled community and how they are partnering, hopefully, with the community to create these innovations. The work that they do, the research they use, many companies across industries share that research publicly on this day. They announce new products. They highlight varying members of the disability community. It's mostly just a day of visibility, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
for the disability community. It's something that, so full disclosure, I may sound like an ass for me, but just follow me on this. I don't do disability activism outside of games because it's so crushing.
Yeah.
It's
I'll bet.
so much of like nothing you do will ever matter in the grand scheme of things, because it's ultimately up to people who are far more powerful to change the issues for you to do. So I tend to not really follow, not because I'm being willfully ignorant. It's just because I don't have the spoons
Yeah.
to keep up with everything. Like marriage equality, for example. Disabled people still can't get married.
Yeah.
It is literally impossible for us to get married in the United States. And I think England too. We can't get married over there. So I just focus on video games. So most of
Yeah.
my knowledge about today is in the video game space and sphere. But I do know that other industries do celebrate it, and usually tech-based industries will release new products, highlight disabled voices, share research, collaborate, and genuinely raise awareness.
Yeah. Now,
You know,
you say this, if I may take for a moment, John.
please.
I want to offer a ray of sunshine, though, right? Because this stuff is soul crushing. Like, and if it's hard for me, I can't imagine how hard it is for somebody who is actually disabled. Because I am somebody who is, you know, the least functioning thing about me is the fact that I'm slightly nearsighted, and that's not anything fucking close to the problems that a lot of people deal with. But at the same time, so I think that my ignorance around disability probably lasted much longer than my ignorance around a lot of other issues, right? I got tuned in on queer issues early because I was closeted, right? And then came out of the closet. I, had a lot of Black and Asian friends growing up. So like I got tuned into conversations about race, right? I had Jewish friends early on. So I got tuned into conversations about like religion and culture and the sometimes messy intersection between like race and religion, right? I got tuned into a lot of that stuff early, but I didn't have a lot of experience with disability and we didn't talk about it much. And it's kind of through gaming that I learned more about I knew obviously that disability existed, and I wanted us, like, if you asked me on the street, like, would you want to make things more accessible for people in like a broad sense? I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. More handicap parking spaces. And that's as far as I would think about it. Right.
We need those, please.
Yes. I mean, yes, do that. But like, learning about a lot of this stuff through the gaming space and becoming more passionate and like seeking out more of this stuff. I learned about an often strictly ableist, like almost explicitly ableist practice that many employers do about hiring, which is the must be able to lift a 50-pound box bullshit, right?
I literally got rejected. So I graduated with a degree, my master's in public history, which is essentially museum work.
Yeah.
Because my journalism school only focused on one student. I'm graduating now. I'm far out, let's face it.
Yeah.
Can say whatever the hell I want now. They focused only on one student and they didn't offer opportunities to anyone else.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, shit, I better get my master's. And then when I graduated my master's, every job, even for writer positions in a museum, was you have to lift 25 to 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And when I would bring it up, they would say, we can't make that exception.
Yeah.
So then I had to fall back on journalism because an entire field was too inaccessible for that.
Yeah. So like that's stuff that I'd seen and I'd never thought about, right? That's just been on every job application for every job I've ever put in at. And I had to learn, like, oh, that's there explicitly to keep disabled people out because it's cheaper for the company to insure able-bodied employees than to pay for the premiums on disabled employees, and like not wanting to take the risk on that kind of shit.
Walmart just did that like 7 or 8 years ago. They made it so all their greeters have to be able to lift 25 to 50 pounds.
Yeah.
And they did that
shit.
explicitly because most greeters were disabled people.
Exactly. So I learned about that, and I, some time ago, got into a higher level position at the TV station I work at, where I now have some authority and some flex over hiring. And I got us to do away with, I don't want to fucking pat on the back for this, because this is not like I did a great thing. This is the way things should be, and it's what I want people to learn. But we did away with the stupid box requirement, and we hired a young man with cerebral palsy to work in our master control room, which he's a sharp young guy, right? Personable. He had every capability of sitting at a desk and doing computer work, and he might have needed some help. He might not have been able to, if an alarm went off and he had to go hit something quick, he was not going to get out of his chair quick and get to that. But he also works with a second person in the room. We always have 2 operators in the room. They're never alone. There's no reason why that guy needed to be the one to react quickly to that specific weird situation. He was going to be capable of doing that job. And he now has a pretty decent paying job for here in Louisville. And a good workplace where he's respected, because we did away with that. And we did away with that because of me. And I learned about this stuff because I saw people in gaming talking about this stuff. So like, I'm not here to say it's not soul crushing, but like Ray of Sunshine talking about this stuff matters. And as more, especially millennials and Gen Z, who are a lot more online and see a lot more of this stuff, move into more of these positions where we can have an impact, we can change these practices, right?
So something that Grant said at the beginning of this conversation really kind of stuck with me. It's been in my head ever since he said it, Grant. And like I don't remember the exact words he used, but and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially, like, you're not disabled until you are. Right.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't know about me is that I am disabled. I'm partially disabled. I am partially deaf. And I wasn't partially deaf until one day I was wounded in Iraq 19 years ago today. And which is ironic, right? Like, because we're, it's national, or it's Global Accessibility Awareness Day, and I'm I'm partially disabled, and it's something that I don't talk about much. But my hearing is shit. Like, my hearing is pure garbage. And after I was wounded, the Navy surgeon who checked me out said the only reason that you are not on a helicopter on your way to Germany right now is because your ears are dirty. Because, you've been out here for months now and we haven't been able to wash. He said, had your ears been cleaned, you'd be completely deaf. And as it was, he said, as it is, he said, you can expect to be deaf by the time you're he said before 40 probably. He says, but your hearing's just going to get worse and worse. It's going to continue to deteriorate. And he was like, there's really nothing that can be done about this, save of like major surgery that I couldn't afford. And that the Marine Corps wasn't going to pay for. So like 10 years later, in 2014, I'm sorry, I went to the doctor and he was like, man, you got a lot of scar tissue in your ear. And I was like, yeah. And I told him what happened. He said, this is going to get, he said, you're going to be deaf soon. Sounds like there's a dog
in the one ear
upstairs. Do you hear that?
No, I hear nothing.
Sounds
you
like
got one really good ear and one really bad ear, my dude.
No, I mean, I've got one ear I can't hear anything out of.
Yeah.
Like one day, like a year or two ago, I just noticed
nothing.
I was like, nothing. There's nothing there anymore.
And it's funny
so
because like
now...
I've got a good buddy who is similarly almost entirely deaf in one ear, and it's because he has just a congenital birth defect with that ear. He was born that way, but like, yeah, it's exactly like Grant said. Like, you are both similar disabled in almost the exact same way. And in one case it's birth, and in one case it's an accident that happened. But
hey guys, I gotta go. Something's going on upstairs. I gotta go.
Okay, go check on that. But like, also to a point that you famously regularly bring up, which I think more people need to hear, Grant, that like not all disabilities are equal. They're not all the same. They're not even all the same sport. Is like my buddy who is deaf in one ear, who also works at the TV station, never had to deal with. He was never threatened by the 50-pound box. So when we talk about accessibility in gaming, we talk about like how cool, PlayStation's new access controller is and things like that. We talk about accessibility options in games. I think one of the big things to beat into people's heads is that there's so many ways that people can deal with disability, and like not just different like categories for lack of a better term, but like some people's blindness is going to be worse than others. Right? Some people's there's multiple different ways to be colorblind that can affect certain games worse than others.
When I first started in 2019, I cannot play that, which is a site exclusively for accessibility in gaming. It was really difficult. There were 5 of us at 6. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting one of you. Let's just say 6. There were 6 of us who were trying to cover basically all of the disability community, because disabled people started being like, oh my god, there's a site for us. And then we had to make sure we were properly representing them. What we found is the individualistic nature of being disabled is one of the main things that was hurting the games industry, and still kind of is, because you can't just have the same 5 to 10 people represent people.
Yeah,
And
'cause it's also different.
yeah, because every experience is different. Which is why, like, with my features, I try and do like the 2 pillars, like dev and disabled community. And I always make sure to never interview the same disabled person more than twice, because it's just not fair to continuously highlight the same people. There are even people.
Grant, real quick, I just want to say bye. We have a guest upstairs, and the dogs are going fucking crazy, and I've got to go help Vicky because there's 3 dogs and 2 of them, and it's a lot. I just want to say I love you. I love everyone here. Grant, I'm sorry to cut you off. I just don't. I didn't want to just leave in the middle of what you're talking about because it's important. I didn't want to disrespect you.
Okay.
So, bye, guys. Love you all.
Later,
I'll see
John.
you next week.
Bye.
Talking
Yeah,
about like the
disabled
individualistic nature of
yeah. So it's really, that's been the most damaging thing that I've had to actively push against by doing this for 4 years. Is the same people are being represented. They can't speak for everyone. Like Veerender said earlier, it's usually a very white audience. A lot of my features, and not to do like with Derek and pat myself on the back, but I wrote a Wired feature where the pitch was highlighting disabled streamers of color because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And that one feature was great for Wired, but like we just see the same ideas being regurgitated because the industry won't listen to other people.
Yeah.
Like there's currently a big debate, like options are the only thing accessibility needs. And that's so demonstrably not true that people don't realize how important game design is with accessibility. You can have a game that has very little options because the game itself is already so accessible. So when you see like, Xbox has their feature tags on their store page, which you can view. If you don't see like subtitles, you may be like, "Oh, this game is definitely very unfriendly," but the game may just not have any spoken word, and you can't really articulate that with stuff like feature tags or just only talk about options. So it's one of the things that like we need more people to just continuously reinforce the narrative that not all disabilities are the same. Not all disabilities are treated with the same level of respect. Like invisible disabilities, usually with mental health, people don't respect them as much. A lot of disabled people don't even recognize them as disabilities. There's a lot of like infighting in the community with that. And we need to just keep bringing on new voices and just keep bringing on new perspectives because that's how you're going to advance. Not the just same, again, no disrespect to these people, but not just the same 5 or 10 voices that the industry has used for the past 10 to 15 years.
People who are doing good work for their perspectives, but there's so many perspectives, and it's just important, I think, too, for a lot of our, our able-bodied listeners, right, to like understand that they need to seek out broad like opinions on all the different ways that people are affected by this. Because like we briefly mentioned the access controller, right? And we talk about the original like Xbox adaptive controller. Those are great options for people with physical disabilities, but at the same time,
literally everyone else.
Yeah, like, but also like, how is that going to help you with a game like Devil May Cry 5, right? Which is inherently just a very unfriendly game to people with any kind of like motor or executive disability, compared to, God, we talked about like card games early on, giving me all the time to just watch a movie and also do that on the side, that's inherently, it feels like a much more accessible format for a lot of games because reaction time is not a part of it. You know, even if you deal with certain executive dysfunction, having the time to make your choices, you know, gives you that flexibility. But at the same time, how much would that help with, I've got a friend who has, I don't know the name of it, but he can't read numbers, basically. They just become jumbles. You can read fine, just not numbers. So like a turn-based RPG is still not accessible to him if he can't look at numbers and get, you know, feedback from, you know, those numbers he's reading. And like, I don't necessarily know dyscalculia. Thank you, Rornado in chat. And I don't have solutions for, and I think the scary thing, you know, tell me if this is too cynical, is like, you know, we may never hit a point where like all games are perfectly accessible to all people.
You never will ever.
Yeah.
I think the big thing is that you can't make people give a shit about other people, right? And that goes across, like, you know, that's just the whole conversation as a whole. You know, V was like, you know, people don't see the value in my writing, you know, and that's an editor thing. You know, people try to, you know, just give different perspectives, but if you don't care, nothing's ever going to change, which is why it's so important to put, you know, people of color, people who are minorities, people who have disabilities in these positions, because nothing's going to change if the same people, if the same brand is going to keep, you know, spinning that wheel. And like, I know we have to cut off pretty soon, but I just like kind of wanted to give my input on like, you know, my ears. I've slowly gone deaf over the last 3 years. I've had a lot of ear surgeries. Like John, one of my ears had scar tissue that was so bad it was just completely covering up my eardrum. And now I'm partially deaf. And I say this for 2 reasons. I've been applying for jobs, and a lot of the jobs ask you if you have a disability, and that disability is, you know, physical, mental, like mental health, hardness of hearing, hardness of seeing, like all of that. And I felt really uncomfortable answering that.
I don't think they're supposed to be allowed to ask that, right? Like,
well, they do, because
but they do anyway, because you're not going to fight
do.
it. Yeah.
The ABA is such a flimsy, like, base of laws.
They can't enforce anything, you know.
No, the ABA is like, it was, oh yeah, the ABA doesn't do shit. It really doesn't do shit.
No, and then like, if anything, I felt like it was harming me more than helping me. You know, because not only am I partially deaf, I also had like, you know, I have anxiety and depression, and it's like, there's the whole list. It's just like a blank statement. If you just see somebody hits yes and you just automatically assume it's the worst, like somebody's depressed and they can't work or whatever, like it's so frustrating. And every time I got to that point on an application, like I wanted to lie, but I didn't. And, you know, I was filling in all last week at my old job. The front desk girl she went on vacation for Mother's Day to go see her daughter. And I was working the front desk. And I worked in that office like 5 years ago. My mother-in-law works in the office. So it was just, you know, it was easy for me. It's easy for me to come in and out whenever they need somebody and I'm not working. So, you know, I was like, I could do that job just fine before. You know, 5 years ago, no big deal. But I really struggled this time. And I remember specifically messaging Zach and being like, I'm so frustrated because I can't hear anybody. Like, I had to turn the phone up. Like, people are talking to me and I couldn't understand them. And even on the phone, even when I turned it up, if the quality isn't good, I couldn't understand what they were saying. And then people were getting mad at me and yelling at me because, you know, I'm like, what? I'm sorry, I can't hear you. And it's just, it's a frustrating thing that I don't think, you know, like you said, Derek, you don't think about it if you're not in that position. And I never really took for granted my hearing until, like, I will never put myself in a front desk job. I will never apply for that again because just that week I did it, it was so frustrating and just defeating to feel like there's something wrong with you and, you know, you're an issue. And, you know, that's just my deafness. I can't imagine how somebody who has, you know, a more severe disability could, you know, feel in any kind of situation. And then on top of that, for you guys both being writers, you know, one of you being a person of color, one of you having accessibility issues, it's who's going to listen to you if nobody wants to listen or understand? You know, it's like, and people don't understand until they've experienced it, or they just, you know, something close happens to home, or, you know, just shit like that. Like basically everything Derek said. And it's just like, it's shitty because, you know, like we talk about wanting it to change, but we can't force other people to give a shit about other people. And, you know, some of that isn't their fault. Some of that is just they don't know any better. But I think we as human beings could do better. Absolutely. Even if we can sympathize a lot better than we do. And it's just shitty.
We owe it to each other to be loud and to listen.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
I do want to say when, in regards to, because I know a lot of people hesitate in regards to pitching or trying to advocate for themselves. And it's good to know that there are many people that will advocate for you in regards to like pitching or writing in that sense. But when you're talking to an editor, that's the only time you have to hard advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
And sometimes when I'm trying to pitch something about race to a white editor, which is a lot, if I try to make the pitch more palatable, it'll just destroy the pitch.
Right, which sucks because you shouldn't have to do that shit. Like
No.
you shouldn't have to. And like I feel like that's why connections in this industry are so important. And you know why it's easier to feel like you get things done is because you can connect with people and you can get them to see your perspective, to talk to somebody else, you know? And it's like that's the best like we can do as like white people is to, you know, white able-bodied people is to advocate for minorities and people who are disabled. And like we could do a fucking better job at it. A lot of people could do a better job at it. And it's like people need to care more.
Listen and take your talking points from the people who actually deal with this shit.
Right.
On a daily basis.
You shouldn't have to have somebody in the industry that can get you into the next stage just because you know somebody, you know? Like your writing should be enough, you should be enough, and it's shitty that it doesn't work out that way.
We'll keep being loud. That's all we can do, right?
Yep. 100%.
It can be soul crushing to use Grant's phrase, but like the alternative
absolutely.
is we give up at it, and that's just not an option.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know.
Even writing the stuff, like there was when I was interviewing, I don't want to say who it was, but I was interviewing somebody and they did a TTRPG play, and they were like the only brown person in a group of like white folk, and they had like a Sikh NPC in their game, right? And what the group did is this NPC was just there, a Sikh NPC was just there to like give a quest and that sort of thing, and like they killed this dude, and then they took his holy sword and like stabbed him with it and like looted him. They just like this nice Sikh NPC, and like this brown player was like that's so triggering. And like when I'm interviewing, I got fucking triggered from that because I'm just like, how do you go on from that? And you're supposed to be doing this as an article, and you're supposed to be doing this as like I'm not going to publish that, of course, but like, and even like the dungeon master was like goading the group on to do that, and it's like
you got to think about this shit. You got to think about like
that is
and
beyond tone deaf. God damn.
Yeah, and then the player was like, it took me years to even want to play as a brown character of myself, because like that's such a fucking triggering experience to have like 7 other people you're playing with like killing this one Sikh NPC who was just like kind and considerate and giving a quest and just being murdered. Like just it's a lot.
Yeah.
And like when I had to like listen to that again and do the transcription, and like I couldn't sleep because of that, because it's just like, how do you, like, first it's already hard to like advocate and pitch a piece, but then when you're like following through on these pieces, no matter like what sort of marginalization, you have to hear the most like horrific stories that'll just trigger you, and then you have to still like get this piece out and like, okay, and it's just like there's a lot that goes in. And I know somebody brought up in the chat about like being like guides writing isn't paid much, and like a lot of people need to also understand, like, if you're playing a game for work, those are work hours. You
Yeah.
you play Zelda for 15-20 hours, those are all work hours. You're not playing as like an enjoy, like there's a very different headspace. But like I got very triggered from that, and I feel like that definitely worsened the piece a bit before Wired brought it. But it's such a, like, even when we're talking about these issues, it's just the most triggering experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like a sad truth of a lot of this is we talk about how necessary the work is, but like the part that we don't say out loud is that like burnout is built into activism, that like
Very easily.
the progress will not happen without, you know, marginalized folks being willing to throw themselves at the problem until they just can't anymore and
Right.
have to hand the problem off to the next younger group of people in the same, you know, group to fucking keep that fight going. And like, granted, that's how we've come as far as we have, but fuck, we have a whole lot farther to go, and that can be really disheartening. But you know, we make it easier, right, by not contributing to that, right? If I'm on the outside of many of these groups, right, as somebody who's able-bodied, as somebody who's white, like I may be queer, but like guess what? Being a white queer, you sometimes still have the ability, frequently still have the ability to add to others' woes. So learn and don't add to it. Make the job easier. Help us get further on the fight in this generation by
Don't get
advocating
comfortable.
for, right? You
Don't get
never get
comfortable.
comfortable.
It's good to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
When you're here. Like
You-
white, yeah, like white fragility. Like that's a thing you yourself have to deal with.
Had to
Not-
discard a lot of white fragility, and guess what? I still
Yep.
sometimes read stuff that makes me bristle.
Yep.
And the
Yeah.
single best thing I can do is go, this is either not about me, right?
Yeah.
It's not about me personally, or I go, this is somebody's truth, and I need to listen and hear this so that we can stop this.
Right. I need to
Right?
learn from what I'm being told that's making
Yeah.
me, you know, question things about myself, or maybe giving me like you said, the wrong emotional response
Yeah.
that I should be having towards something like that.
If you're somebody who takes like a very like simplistic approach to accessibility, and somebody has to tell you like, hey man, it's more complicated than that. Like
Right.
that's a phase
It's
I
more
went
than
through.
just subtitles and
That's
you
a
know,
phase I went through with somebody being like, man, it's a lot more complicated than these boilerplate things you're thinking of, and like wanting to push back against that, but it's like, no, I don't know this shit. They do.
Yep.
The Tears of the Kingdom right now is, like, I don't want to say triggering because it feels trivial, but every time a FromSoft game comes up, disabled people are at the end of countless, like, harassment from
Yeah.
FromSoft fans. So right now, with Tears of the Kingdom, disabled people are, like, eating their life over if Nintendo sucks. And one of the main reasons is because disabled people still only think options are the only accessible use.
Yeah.
If you don't have options, your game is shit. And because Nintendo games traditionally don't have options, but they have fantastic game design, because they're made for everyone, disabled people can play a lot of Nintendo games. But usually the first thing a lot of them see is, oh, options. And then it's just. But there was, I don't want to call out a specific thing. If you saw it, you saw it, right? It was the strapping of trust in Tears of the Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
It was very much like, this trust is inaccessible to deaf and hard of hearing people. And disabled gaming Twitter lost their shit. So my mom friend who is deaf run through the crest, and it's literally impossible to fail the crest. The game tells you where to go. You can't leave the area because it brings you back. And every time you get closer, like a captioned message comes up, like indicating you are getting closer. But because the person didn't understand game design, it set off a massive firestorm that disabled people are still arguing about right now.
I did see you say on Twitter talking about, like, if I have to hear one more person say Nintendo is the least accessible company, I will become the Joker. Basically, like, it's so much more complicated than that.
It's my biggest frustration with this industry is looking at games like The Last of Us, right?
Mhm.
And be like, it's the most accessible game ever. I still have never played The Last of Us Part 2 because I can't use a PlayStation controller. You can have all the options you want. I still can't play your damn game.
And you
Yeah.
don't like. I didn't even think about shit like that, right? Like you could have all the accessibility options in the game, but if they don't give you the option to
Mm-hmm.
play with something else, like with a controller that doesn't work for you, like what does it matter to you, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Well, and the
Yeah.
Access controller is great, but you know what would also help is if Sony allowed the use of more third-party peripherals that could connect to the PS4 that can't to the PS5, and they don't because they have a controller to sell you, right? That's
Yep.
rainbow capitalism, basically.
It's literally there's so much nuance to
Mm-hmm.
global accessibility awareness day because again, like you just have one camp is like options are the only answer, but then you have stuff like Last of Us, which has almost 75 plus. A lot of people still can't play it.
Yeah.
And then you can't go like people still can't play it, but then because there are people be like, but options, and then they'll drown your voice out.
Yeah.
But stuff like Elden Ring. For many disabled people, Elden Ring was the first FromSoft game that they could platinum because of its design principles. But again, because FromSoft is like accessibility Satan, right?
Yeah.
Everyone just jumped on the bandwagon. Everyone just jumped on the bandwagon and was like, don't play this game, boycott it. There's no options, it sucks. But like, you can't have that mindset. It's just, it's a constant battle with like your own community and the industry.
And a lot of, I think, well-meaning people who have learned a little bit, who have decided to step to the forefront and be, you know, that's hard, right? Because like we do want you to learn, we do want you to be loud, but at the same time, like a lot of the woes you're talking about are caused by people who do not actually, who are not disabled, who are listening to this sort of coverage and learning 60% of it. And going, that's enough for Dunning-Kruger to kick in and me to think I know everything. And speaking over disabled people.
Every time there's a FromSoft game, there's at least 10 other publications that release 3. Does this game need easy mode? And it just adds so much harassment to disabled people because, like, that's not the solution that people think it is.
Yeah.
And then disabled people get angry because of those who are like, yeah, I think so. And you have the FromSoft fans who attack them. You have other people who are like, it doesn't need easy mode, not to be an ass, but because it just won't work. And then they get attacked. It's just a constant, like, pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna try to attempt to wrap a bow on this here. But I didn't want to cut us off too early because it was like, no, we were on like a really important role. But
right. I felt the same way. I was like, we're going over, but it's important.
Yeah. The thing I would ask from our audience, right? Those of you who are, you know, because all this is intersectional, right? But those of you who are in one way or another, you're straight, you're able-bodied, you're cis, you're white, you know, you are Christian or atheist, which are like the two religious identities you can have in this country that don't cause a lot of problems for you. You know, any of these various things, like listen, never stop listening, right? Be loud, but always be looking at people from those affected communities to see when you're overstepping. always be ready to be checked. Never take it personal, right? This is a fight that we've got to have, right? And that fight can be, using the platform you have to talk about this stuff. It can be, trying to make changes at your workplace. It can be talking to family members when they, say or do uncomfortable shit, right? Like there's so many ways, little ways often, that you can make a little bit of an impact, and it will be all of us making those little decisions, trying our best, that will move this needle forward. Even just a little bit, but even if it just moves a little bit, that's monumental. That makes such an improvement to so many people's lives. So, big meaty episode today, but like a reminder, this is why we do this. This is why every one of us should be paying attention and listening, because we're never done learning.
And we should do it on days that aren't just accessibility days or disability Christmas, as Grant called it. Like we should be doing this shit all the time.
We should always be celebrating the people of color and disabled people of color.
100%. Like, don't just do it for a month.
Yeah.
Just every day. Celebrate accessibility, people of color.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to hit Pride, the 1 month of the year when people will thank me for the bravery of liking penis sometimes. Like, it's like, God damn it, folks. It's a little bit more complicated than that. Somebody's got to do it.
I'll send you a medal. Just give me your address.
Right. I'll put it in chat. But Grant and Veerender, thank you both so much for joining us tonight. This has been a big one. This has been a very fulfilling episode. I feel like of the show. And I've needed one of these. So, and it's always just, you're just both charming and fun people, and it's always great to have you on. And the invitation's pretty much open to both of you, right? Like, ask to come on just because there's a new Pokemon expansion and you want to rant about it, right? Like,
no, just don't do that. I will ruin your show. Don't ever invite me on a Pokemon.
I'll probably ask again in a month because I'll still be doing Zelda work. But it'll be
we can get a part 2.
You're out in a month because fucking Final Fantasy 16 will be out, and that's all we'll be on.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad.
Join to the party, yeah.
Rip to all guests.
You'll be like, I want to talk about Zelda, and we'll be
I'm only gonna ask Yoshi P.
Give us a month.
If I get to meet Yoshi P, I'm only going to ask him about that Bomberman game he worked on. I'm not here for Final Fantasy 16.
Oh my god.
But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah. Where can people follow both of you? Starting with Veerender, I guess.
You can follow me on Twitter at Veerender_Jubbal. And if you have Blue Sky, I'm there.
Hell yeah.
As well.
I don't have that yet. I signed up, but I don't have it yet.
We'll get you there.
It's good. I mean, Derek and John are there from this group. I don't know who
It's
else
hard when there's not a critical mass of people and as many shit posts to share, but still.
Yeah, it's pretty barren. Like, the way posts are, like, it'll be like 10 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago will be the next post.
Give it time.
Like,
we just need more people.
Yeah.
Need more monkeys on typewriters to get that content going.
Pretty much. Hamster wheels.
Yeah.
You can find me there, and you can find me at major publications, IGN, GameSpot, Wired, Eurogamer, everywhere, wherever. Mostly on Twitter. You can see me have more selfies of my bow tie matching.
Love those.
Grant, what do you got to plug, bud?
You can find me on Twitter at super_crip1994. Until Elon bans that word, I'm fine, but may have to change my name soon. I'm not on Blue Sky because I don't like change. I disabled people, so I'm just on this ship until it burns.
Yeah.
Let's fucking burn it, baby.
I'm a shit person until the day the servers die. You can read my work. 95% of it is about accessibility at Wired. I have a monthly column at IGN where I talk about all accessibility. Inverse, I do a lot of reviews for them. Yeah, that's primarily it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what we got. Folks, thank all of you listeners for joining us on this extra long episode. I hope you learned something. I hope you learned that you need to keep learning because you're never done
I was gonna
learning.
say, I hope you like learn that you can need to
Yeah.
continue learning.
You don't get to turn this episode off and be done, motherfuckers.
This wasn't your good deed. You're like, I
Well,
listened to
no.
a podcast about
Well, no.
accessibility.
Yeah.
We normally
Look at
say
me.
we normally say kindness costs nothing, but you know what? Kindness costs a little bit of effort. Do some learning. Read your
Right.
book.
That's our new tagline. Kindness costs a little bit of effort. Go learn.
Yeah, read
Plus
your
your
book.
fucking
You
footnotes.
fucking
Yeah.
nerds. You fucking gamers, do something.
Night nerds.
Good night.